Well, welcome. It is great meeting you, I guess virtually, but like I was telling you before, yeah, LinkedIn has a fantastic ability to connect people that you would never be connected with ever, and we kind of do that. So that is one thing about technology that I do like. There are other things about technology that I don't like. Sometimes I think people tend to take technology to especially on the technology side of it, especially with the construction, they think that technology can handle everything. And construction is just so complex that I tend to disagree. And so that's why I like to get folks on like yourself who are actually out there in the field, actually doing the work and using the technology and seeing what's real and what's not. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad you reached out to me, and I typically say yes to everybody who asks me to come on to either a podcast or a video
Right.
link or whatnot. So I usually find them entertaining, and then also I enjoy them from the aspect of possibly being able to provide some insight.
Mhm. Well, and so I did want to talk to you about that. So you've been in the field quite a while. Let's see. Of course, you and I are both Purdue alumni. So,
Right.
and I had to reach out to you just for that one. But you were in the Army Corps of Engineers for a
Yes.
few years, right? That's kind of
Yes.
your start into the foray of construction, and then Turner, Austin Commercial, Walsh Group. You did your time at the DFW airport.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations. I feel for
Thank
you.
you. Nah.
And then Skanska. Skanska. So yeah, I mean that's a lot of experience on some very, very large project builds. So
Yeah, I've had a very fortunate career. I mean, at the very beginning of it, especially in the Army, if you would have told me I would have accomplished what I have and been able to experience what I have, especially in the industry and certainly here in Dallas, I would have said you were insane. So it's just one of those things. I've been fortunate in life, and just things fell in the line, and I've been able to do things that I probably never would have dreamed of early in my life.
yeah, I found it was my 30 years in the industry have it's taken me from kind of one point to the next, not thinking that it was going to become a career, but then suddenly realizing, looking back, like this is what I've done my whole life.
Yeah, right.
So kind of that trick of how did that all happen? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes it feels like, I always hate the phrase that, all time just feels like it's flying by, or especially people in the latter part of their lives, usually look back and say it just goes by so quick. And it always just kind of annoys me. But I'm getting to the point now where I start to appreciate that more and more when you say, like I literally hit 25 years in the construction industry at the turn of this past year. So I'm in my 25th year in a month, I guess. But to think that a quarter century of your life has been devoted to one industry, it's sometimes you think it's a long time, and then other times you're like, man, that really did go by pretty quick.
right. So I wanted to talk about construction tech, construction technology as it has evolved through the years. I uh, I was having a conversation with Kyle Nietzsche, and I think it was the other day. We were talking about Procore, and you're a certified Procore, expert. I was one of the early adopters of Procore back when I was running work. Like I was trying to use Procore for small jobs, even though it's probably better for big jobs. I was trying to get folks organized on it, and so I want to get your opinion on that. Throughout your career, what have you seen as far as that development of technology and like useful stuff that has come across your plate, and some stuff that maybe not?
Yeah, I mean, when I started off, the first job I had, they still had a fax machine. They still had a fax machine, and I was the only person who had email because I was the only person who knew how to use email. So it was kind of funny, like to think that, okay, here's the young guy, we'll give that to him, and that's the only person who had email. I mean, I tell people that now, and they just look at me like I can't even imagine that. So I guess the point is, I started at the latter part of the old school method of construction. So I got to see it from there. And then, of course, it grew from there. But I mean, to answer your question, I mean, we started off with Excel. That was what we used for tracking everything from our from the financial side, our costs, change orders, and then we would track it for material tracking, certainly shop drawings, submittals. From there, it went to I want to say Prolog was the next system. Turner was adopting Prolog, and so we'd taken everything that we had learned up to that point with Excel, and then saw it go to more of a web-based system where it wasn't like if one person was in that file and then somebody else needed to add something. Well, hey, can you get out of that file so I can add this to it? It was obviously a database type system where multiple people could be working in there, and there were still some issues. You would have areas where somebody may, and I'm going off of memory, but somebody may add a cost item and they used a certain number. Well, somebody else is working it at the same time. They save it, and then all of a sudden it's messed up because, well, this person saved it first, and so you had to start managing through that. But there certainly was improvements. Moving on from there, I think they created a more integrated system. Everything from accounting to engineering to even the field operations was trying to go to one type of system. But right about that time is actually when I got the opportunity with Austin, and so I then transferred over to their operations, and they had very similar technology involved in their processes too, although they certainly weren't named the same things, but they had a more integrated system, and we started using things such as BIM 360. We would use other items that seem to provide the same type of product, such as we would have drawings all on our iPad. Which was really, really cool. I think that really was a big game changer because I would not have to go out with, this big roll of drawings or a backpack full of, shop drawings and submittals and then try to sort through all that stuff. It was all on my iPad. I do recall though, I was laughing, in fact, the other day, I was telling somebody, you always had to sync your iPad. You always, make sure you sync your iPad. Make sure you sync your iPad. You do that every day. And so it got to be a little bit annoying because it's like, somebody would be updating drawings. Well, if you're out in the field all day long, you haven't received those drawings yet because you haven't updated your iPad because it hasn't been, you don't have the web-based capabilities when you were remote at that time.
It was almost the same as using paper plans when you're sitting out there.
Yeah.
So, because I still don't have the ability to get the latest set of drawings automatically.
Yeah, it would get annoying because, of course, and I guess I'm getting a little bit, up there in age as far as, the industry is concerned, but it was like, trying to teach an old dog new tricks. Well, if there was any problem, it was like, well, why don't we just go back to the old way of doing it? Why don't we just go back to the old way of doing it? So it's been a little bit of a battle, but, now, and I'm sure it'll continue to develop, but I mean, we have the capabilities now with our iPads here at Skanska where it's instantaneous. I mean, our iPads are just like our iPhones. And I'm sure that a lot of those companies are the same way where it's, I don't have to update my iPad. It's like it immediately provides me information that's up to date, assuming that, the person that's updating the system is keeping that system up to date.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing that goes to, so I had an interview with Hamza Shambari. He's from Haskell. He wrote a great book called The Paperless Builder. And his topic was, we got on the subject of constructability. A lot of things, kind of to your point, if people are updating the drawings, as long as they're updating them correctly with the right information, everybody's good. But a lot of times what happens is you've got an RFI, it's just totally unanswered. It's kind of just hanging out there and you're waiting for that RFI to get, and it's holding things up. And no matter how much technology that you have, if you still don't have the correct information in front of you, if it's still not timely, or if it's still not constructible, it does not help you at all.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I've seen that on numerous occasions, and I mean that goes all the way back to even before technology. I mean, if the person isn't updating them, if you're not getting the things squared away, then yeah, it can become a problem very quickly.
Right. So, do you think that everybody always talks about, well, why does it take so long to build things? Why does it take? Why does it take so long? Every time I my wife, we drive down 380. It's like, when, when's 380 going to be finished?
Yeah.
Yeah. But why does it take so long? I'm like, and I have to kind of, I bite my tongue a little bit. I'm like, well, you have to understand there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes about
Right.
every last item that you see. And I don't care if it's civil work that you're doing or if you're doing a hospital job, even if you're just doing a cabinet work, if you're just guy doing cabinet work somewhere and, you get the wrong dimension and you build a set of cabinets and put them in there, try to fit them in that space and it doesn't fit. Guess what? That's exactly what happens when you don't have good communication out in the field on
Oh
that big
yeah.
civil job, or you've got that big hospital job, whatever you guys are working on, pouring foundations, whatever you're doing. And I think it's interesting to note, no matter the amount of technology that we have, we still have that same communication issue, it seems sometimes. And so then that's when I say, well, is it not necessarily the technology? We have the ability to communicate better, and we have the ability to communicate faster. It's just that we're not, right? Our processes are so maybe broken, or they're so siloed and segmented that maybe that's just the reason why. It's our process and not the technology itself. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that the lost art of picking up the phone and calling somebody is not a good thing. It seems like people hide behind the technology itself, the email, uh, the distribution lists, the texts, the things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are important and certainly well done if managed correctly. A good for instance would be, we put up a text group or group texts on all our projects, everything from just normal conversations to emergency contact lists. Before, what would you have to do? Let's go back to even before cell phones. I mean, it would be you'd call your boss or you call this person, you hang up the phone, you call the next person, and so you're having to pick up the phone, and it's obviously a little more labor intensive. Whereas text, it's instantaneous. You get it out to, I mean, shoot, you could probably get out to 100 people if you wanted to, but there's a lot quicker distribution and certainly ways for us to send things out more quickly. But I do see though, and this could be, people could argue it both ways, but it seems like to me the art of picking up the phone, going to somebody's office, or even inviting them to your office to sit down and look at the drawings and walk through and say, okay, what were you planning here, or what were you going to do here, or why haven't where's the issue at? That seems to that's a lost art, like I said, not to be redundant, but it seems like people, it's become foreign to us as a group, and I hate seeing that. And oftentimes I try to push for that. Okay, where is their office? Let's fly there and walk in and have a meeting with them, because obviously there's a problem either on our end or on their end, and we need to resolve it. So I hope that portion stays. We don't just completely do away with that side, because I think it's important for us in certainly this industry that we keep that communication active, even in an old school, just face-to-face meeting or even a phone conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I have found over the years, like I said, emails are easily lost. Even text messages can get piled up on you. You lose track. I don't care how many people are included in your group message. You end up losing track of some of that kind of stuff, whatever was said in the thread. And I think that meaning, context gets lost a lot of times in
Oh
those
yeah.
things, especially like, if you're trying to be emphatic about something, but yet still not, wanting to, piss anybody off, right? You have to,
Yeah.
there's a nuance to it, right? And there's a way that you can kind of express urgency without sounding like you're really, wanting to pound on somebody
Yeah.
either. So I do see that. And so then that kind of leads me to my next thing about you. You wrote an article about kind of, I want to say you wrote an article or did something about passing it on to the next generation.
Oh yeah.
And so I kind of read that and was like, yeah, you're right. We've got a lot of folks that have a lot of great knowledge that we really need to pass down. And I want to know what your experience is with, passing down some knowledge. And have you had, a little pushback? Well, I can just send the email or I can just do this. And it's like, hey, maybe it's better to try it this way, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. What's your experience with that?
We had a good case in point here recently. It was with a testing lab, and there was some concern about uh, the subgrade, and then dealing with, I think there were some water issues on the building, and there was this going back and forth of, well, we'd utilize this material. Well, we were supposed to use this material, but it got it approved through an email, and an RFI came out, and it was just a lot of convoluted, I want to say mess, that we wanted to have a clear direction on. Does this work? Yes or no? And we were starting to get different entities, different stakeholders kind of all providing their opinion, but it started to become this like, okay, why can we all not come to a resolve? And
Mhm.
so, we kept trying the email system, and well, I sent this out, and then this person responded with this, and then now I'm waiting on this person. And it started to become annoying, quite honestly, because it's like, we've got to pour the slab, or else we're not going to make it, or else we're going to delay the schedule. And so it was just a matter of, and it seems, I kind of laugh because it's like, this is kind of the way we used to do it. It was like, get everybody in the same room and let's talk through this and say, okay, what's your issue with what he just described, or she's saying this, why doesn't that work? Or, and we were able to within an hour come to a resolve amongst the group and say, okay, we are proceeding with this. Here is how we're going to be able to be successful at it, and here's what our plan is. Does anyone have a problem with that? And it showed, it was kind of like these light bulbs start going off of, oh wow, I can see where this becomes more effective, rather than just, oh, okay, yeah, it's simple. Let's text this out. Let's do this. It's like, no, bring everybody together in the same room and let's hash this out. It makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think it's and it does away with a lot of that whole, I don't know, that I guess keyboard warrior style of
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
the I can be a little bit more aggressive over here on
You're
this
right.
side of the screen
Yeah,
rather than the other way. So
right.
yeah, I totally get that. I used to love having the ownership meetings with, and we'd have everybody in the room. That's when I first started using Procore. We were working for I was the GC. We were working for an owner operator who said we need to be on Procore, and I had never, but then we started using it, and I was like, okay, this is great because everybody's on the same page. And so I remember this specifically, where it's like we're supposed to have this technology where we're all on the same page, and everybody's supposed to be kind of reading the RFI and the notes, but yet we still have this ownership meeting where we'd sit down and everybody start asking these questions. Where's this? Where's this? So I was like, it's all right there in Procore, y'all. I've been putting it in as we go forth. Here's what's been answered. Here's all the submittals. This is what's been done. This is what's not been done. It's all right there. But yeah, we're still having this sit down meeting,
Right.
and so it was almost this overlap kind of thing. It was like now we're being redundant in the technology by utilizing the technology, and then but also not using the technology all at the same time. And I just always thought
Sure.
that was funny. It's like there are certain scenarios where it's just like, hey, it's real easy. Let's all get together and solve this problem. Great. Yeah. And then there are other situations where we're just having a meeting to have a meeting. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I do not like that.
No. Yeah, I'm adamant about my time, and saying that, like, look, if it doesn't make sense for us to meet, let's not do that, or else let's have an objective. So when we do sit down, it's all right. Here's what we're here doing. It's not a matter of, well, I just want to hear myself talk because I get tired of hearing my own voice sometimes. But it's like, don't waste people's time, because otherwise you're going to lose them.
Right. And so that's kind of getting back to the whole, kind of passing down the idea, right? Passing down the technology or passing down the knowledge. Um, I always say there's a difference. You have knowledge of something and then you have wisdom. I think wisdom is when you've experienced something, and now you've truly, you may know about something or know about a scenario, but if you haven't experienced it, you really don't have any wisdom over it. And so how, I find it difficult, and I don't know how, at what level this starts and stops, right? At a labor type level where it's a carpenter or a carpenter's apprentice. I don't know where that technology is going to kind of phase in, but when we start talking about somebody straight out of college, it's a project manager, assistant project manager type that's just coming into something new, and they have zero kind of idea. Maybe they've had an internship someplace, and then but then all of a sudden it gets very, very real when they get into that first job. And I think for them, being able to embrace some of those older ways because they don't know anything is better because it gives them an idea of how it used to be. First of all, it was a little bit more difficult, but it also gives them an idea of how to communicate with the teams that are out there. I mean, like you said in your article, I mean, there is a large portion of people over 55 years old who are in the trades, and you're trying to communicate these, I'll say, younger ideas, or you're trying to communicate your message. You got to speak their language a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important for us to be able to do that. Obviously, the older generation or the more seasoned veterans, they've been doing this for, like you just said, 25 plus years. So they typically have an understanding on how they want to do something. So it was difficult even when I came into it. I mean, everybody's the new guy, right? And you don't know anything, and sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. But I think as you get into it and you start to make your own way, and you put forth the effort, and you show that you have the abilities and certainly have the competence to be able to do that, you start to understand. I mean, most of these people have kids, and so if they have children, they're probably the age of the people that's coming in to the industry. So it's not like they're necessarily completely shy of understanding, I just raised a child who's about, your age. And so I kind of understand how they were brought up and understand some of their nuances. So they're usually, from what I've seen, there becomes a middle ground there, but it's certainly important, I think, for obviously the younger people coming into the group to appreciate and certainly respect those that are been around and certainly understand the old way of doing things. And I think that goes a long way for them to reciprocate back to the younger staff, to be like, okay, you provide the respect to me. I can see that you obviously want to be here and that you're looking to make this a career, and you're wanting to learn the way that I've done this, or the way that we've done this. And there starts to become this back and forth. And I think that people start to appreciate one another, especially in those generational gaps.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like those buy-ins from those kind of sage old folks, as far as getting there, you want that opinion. Like, you definitely want that, especially as a younger guy. Like, I never first came into the industry. It was like, I never said a word. Like, I was one of those, I had some very, very good mentors who taught me early. It was like, it's probably best that you keep your mouth shut for like the first 3 weeks and just, just ask questions, talk very little.
Yeah.
And so, you learn a lot if you just listen, watch, engage, let the old guys teach you, because the old guys will definitely teach you if you let them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's one of you don't expect them to teach you, but they teach you in their own special way. Sometimes it's kind of like you kind of learn, kind of who to stay away from, or who to kind of just watch from a distance,
Right.
But because it does take some time to warm up. And that would bring me to the topic of, there always seems to be this bit of tension between, kind of office and field sometimes. And I just feel like that has a lot to do with the language, with the kind of the culture. It's a little rougher language, a little rough around the edges sometimes. And I don't think most people understand that. And I think with the inclusion of kind of technology, as we're trying to infuse it, into construction, and because obviously there's a lot of translation that has to happen, right? If you're trying to use technology in the construction field of how you're going to help a process get better or do those kind of things, well, you kind of got to get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And that language doesn't always come out into this kind of office technical environment kind of speak. So I kind of want to talk to you about that. It's kind of like this solutions engineering kind of approach, where you really need the input from the field if you're trying to apply technology, but then you also need the technicians, whoever's trying to design said technology, to really like open up your ears and get past all of the like the rougher language and those kind of things and kind of try to help figure that out. What's your thoughts on that?
What are the thoughts on the field versus the office and how they talk to one
Yeah,
another? Is that what
that
your
break. There
question
seems there's
is?
a break in communication. Do you think that's still prevalent, or am I out of touch
I
there?
I feel like I've always hated that, and as I've gotten up into the ranks, I've always tried to combat any sense of that whatsoever. I've never. I mean, I can appreciate it. You know, maybe some people just feel like it's a competitive thing, perhaps that well, we're better than them, and vice versa. So perhaps it stemmed from that, but at the same time, I'm looking at this like we're a team here. Not to be cliche, but if we fail, we all fail. If the field fails, we all fail. If the office fails, we probably all fail. And so
Yeah.
I've never understood that facet. So I guess I can only speak from firsthand knowledge or firsthand experiences that I feel like that type of mentality is hopefully waning. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of the superintendents now, even the ones that we're bringing on, that are the younger staffers. I mean, they are typically blue collar kids that also have a degree. I'm probably a good case in point. My dad was an electrician. Mom was either a stay at home mom or just it was a secretary or a field admin. So they that's what I gravitated towards. But at the same time, I've also got, certainly degrees from different institutions. I'm sure that's a bit of an anomaly, but at the same time, I'm seeing resumes come across my desk that show, yes, I want to be a superintendent, and I graduated, from Purdue, or I graduated from Michigan, or A&M, and that. And so, what my point is like, I think that mentality of, the office is just the educated folks, and they think that they're better than us, and or the office looking at the field, all that they're just a bunch of knuckle draggers that are just carpenters that came up through the trade. That is starting to become infused with one another, and that yes, you still have the people who make their way up through the trade, but they're also very educated too in their
Mhm.
training. Or you've also got people who maybe like myself, I never was in a union, but I certainly had my father or people in my life that's like, here's how you physically do this. Here's how you make this happen with your hands, and you're also getting the education. So, and then on the office side, I'm seeing, more people who also have the, I've done the hands-on experience, but this may be the way that I've wanted to go. So in the end, or currently, it feels like, both sides have more of an appreciation for one another, rather than this, well, I came up through the ranks, and so, you don't know anything about me, or, I went to college and I got my degree, so I'm smarter than you. That seems to be going away, which I'm happy to see, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's good news. That's good to hear. Because again, it's one of those things where, like I said, I came up. I like you. I went to Purdue, but then after Purdue, I went into carpentry and I joined the Carpenters Union.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm hoping that, and I guess that kind of leads to my next thing. Was like you always hear about the labor shortage and those types of things, and how tough it is to staff up jobs and get good skilled labor. And I don't know if it's just skilled labor or if it's even like mid-level labor, even project managers coming out of school. I think the appeal of construction, and this is just me, is should be immense because I feel like it has so much more to offer uh, than most other kind of occupations. But um, I don't know. What are you seeing as far as from Skanska and the folks that you're getting? I mean, Skanska is a very, very large company. I'm sure it has broad appeal, but what are you seeing when that kind of the kids coming out of college or those kind of things? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, as far as the labor shortage goes, it's being felt all over. I speak to certainly our competitors or our groups, and everybody's feeling the strain. I mean, and we knew this was coming. We saw the demographics and the statistics, and we knew. I mean, heck, even back when I started in this industry and at the turn of the century, I mean, you looked at the people that were currently there, and 15 to 20 years from now, these guys are going to start retiring. Who's going to backfill them? And there was the issue. And I mean, we can get off track, I guess, and say, I think that people kind of looked at the trades perhaps in a negative light and said, I don't want to do that. I'm only going to go to college, or I'm going to go to college. And I think that in some regards that's good, but at the same time, there are people who, hey, I like working with my hands. I like doing this stuff. I don't want to be stuck in an office all day in front of a computer doing data entry. I want to be outside and working in the elements and seeing things happen with my hands. And so, to answer your question, yes, we do have a labor problem, but I feel like that we're starting to see a turn in people seeing that, hey, you can make, really good money, certainly in the skilled trades, and also have a rewarding career. I mean, and I think that negative light may be turning, and people are going, oh wow, I did not know that. I didn't know that I could go to these things. We're actually building a school for one of the projects is for Collin College. And I walk through their facilities, and I'm in envy. I mean, they have, welders, they have machines that I mean, heck, Ford Motor Company would probably be jealous of. I mean, just amazing training facilities there that I think if you would bring, certain individuals through there and say, hey, you can be trained and come out of college and be making really good cash with almost no debt. And I think that appeals to a lot of people. And so I foresee here in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see people starting to recognize how good some people may have it in the trades, and that we'll start seeing an uptick in that number.
I agree with you. I agree with you too. I think we're starting to see a turn. I read an article. I want to say it was I can't remember. I want to say it was like a Washington Post or something like that, or it might have been a Wall Street Journal article, but it was talking about the uptick. They're starting to see an uptick in a certain generation. I want if it was Gen Z maybe, or one of the sectors. They were talking about how they're starting to see an uptick in enrollment in things like technical schools, whether it's for welding or whether it's for mechanics and those types of things. And I feel like that's a positive sign in a positive direction, because I truly am proof positive that you can make a career in, when you, it doesn't matter whether you went to college or if you didn't go to college, but you can come out and find a job, and you can get some on the job experience and go to technical school or go to an apprenticeship or those types of things. And you can make a career out of construction. And it's very, very, you can raise your family, you feed your kids, you can pay your bills, you can do all those things. And then as the demand is even more increasing, obviously just the laws of economics will start to kick in, and that it's higher pay jobs for the work that you're skilled and know how to do. And so I definitely see that coming back around. I'm hoping that we're going to have more folks really start to recognize. And it looks like, even Home Depot now has a promotion of, the trades and promotion of training, things like that, trying to get it very, very obvious to a lot of these younger age folks out there that, hey, first of all, we need you. And second of all, you can really make a living here. I mean,
oh yeah,
far better than you can do, trying to, figure out if they're going to give you another raise at that local fast food joint or whatever. There's a lot of that going around.
Right.
So I totally agree. Last but not least, I just kind of want to talk about technology overall in construction. I'm starting to see the whole thing. Everybody wants to talk about AI and how it's going to help all these things. And again, I think that people in construction need to lead this thought rather than people in technology trying to lead the thought for construction. So I want somebody who's actually out there in construction. You tell me what you think about AI and its potential.
I mean, I've probably scratched the surface on AI and what's possible. I mean, with everything from us doing our proposals, somebody will type it into, I think, Chat GPT or, one of those things to figure out, okay, have I said it correctly, or is there a better way to do this? And I personally haven't used it, but I've sat through meetings where people do that, and it's like, okay, I can kind of see that, or how that improves. But I still feel like, people say the possibilities are endless with AI, and that may be true. We certainly see it with, okay, how are we going to sequence this building, and how are we going to bring this out of the ground, or how are we going to be able to remodel this and keep areas operational? So there is some good to it, but I think you also have to keep in mind the human aspect of it. I don't think that will ever go away. I think that whatever we come up with, whether it be, any of these technologies we described, in fact, we mentioned it earlier. If you aren't updating the drawings, or if you aren't using the system correctly, then it's all for naught. I mean, somebody still has to install the materials. Somebody still has to go up there and put the walls up. Somebody still has to pour the concrete. So I think that, yes, there are tools that will help us. I just hope that we don't become snowblind, with some of the offerings, and then people start to become lax and say, well, we'll just ask AI and they'll be able to tell us, and we'll just move
Yes.
on, and I'll collect a paycheck. And so I get concerned, and I brought up the idea with, like, the proposal. I get a concern with the idea that people do, well, I'll just put it in here and this is what spit it out, and so I'll copy and paste that and then we'll go with it. And it's like, well, yeah, but no, you still need to look at this. We still need to see, does it actually make sense in what we're putting in here? Because it very well could, but I don't like the idea of it becoming a tool that people just simply rely on solely, and then all of a sudden we've lost the skills, we've lost the human aspect, and certainly the ability to pass it on. I get a little bit concerned when I start seeing things like that.
Yeah, I do. The complacency portion is the thing that scares me the most. It's maybe lack of critical thinking, because when
Yes.
you get used to not thinking and having somebody, you get dull, right? I
Yep.
mean, you got to keep your mind sharp and those types of things. So I do worry about those same things. I think you and I are kindred spirits on that thought. One of the things that I kind of, to your example, and I'm sure you probably use them or know some folks that have used them out in the field. I don't know if you guys use the robotic layout machines. Do you guys use any of those?
We actually have a group, both the quality control and a lean group, and both deal with the AI offerings. In fact, I think we won an award. Or I know we won an award here recently, and so
Yeah.
they have the robot dogs, they have the layouts, but again, we want to make sure, whatever it is we use, it's not just oh, that's a nice toy, or because you see oftentimes people, and it probably does work well, the robot dogs, but
Mhm.
if it kind of becomes this, oh wow, look at that cool toy. Okay, well, cool.
It's
What does it actually do, and does it help us overall? So I
yeah,
think
it's
we
kind of
do a good
novel.
job of, yeah. It's not a novelty, is what we want to look at it as. So if the offering out there helps us, then absolutely we're on board with it.
I got you. Yeah, I always know that no matter if I laid it out or if somebody else laid it out, I always remember when I was going back through, I'd check it twice.
Yeah,
It didn't
absolutely.
matter. Yeah, it didn't matter
Yeah,
if I did it or so I would go back through it and go, I got to check these numbers again.
yeah.
I mean, even if I was using the old chalk box and everything, just kind of go back through and do it. Well, Kyle, listen, I really do appreciate your time here today. I didn't want to take a bunch of it, but man, you're so gracious with your time. I appreciate it. And I hope at some point we can get back together and talk and see what's going on later this summer.
Absolutely.
That would be fun to do, just to kind of see what's going on in the Skanska world and your world, and anything new in technology that's come across your plate, or if you had to, kick a robot dog off your job site.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this. So yeah, I look forward to it.